Call of Duty is sneaking in some very interesting and somewhat controversial mechanics with the new Season 1 Reloaded update. And today I wanted to talk about everything that's coming and talk about how some of these features have created a little bit of a backlash. Because these could go really, really well or really horrifically wrong, and it's all down to the execution. Now, this video will primarily focus on Warzone, but if you're interested, the only other major update for the most part is that ranked play is coming to multiplayer for those of you who enjoy giga sweating that mode. The first thing coming in Season 1 Reloaded is the nuke contract, and I know some of you are probably sat there thinking I'm never getting 5 wins in a row, so why do I care about this? Well, that's changed, and as has a lot of things regarding the nuke contract, so I think this year's version of it is actually going to be really good. To start with, how the contract works has changed. You'll still have to gather elements and put them into a nuclear bomb and then detonate the device, but for the most part, it's worth remembering that the elements are going to be different from the ones we've had before, and they will have their own weird and quirky side quests. But there are two major substantial changes to how the nuke contract works that I think is really great for everyone. Now, traditionally, you can get a nuke by getting 5 wins in a row, which is a really cool way to do it. It's very challenging to do and a lot of fun. But for regular players who just don't have the time commitment, or maybe it's just something that's a little bit too difficult, they get 3 or 4 in a row, they've now made it so that when you get 30 wins in Warzone, generally speaking, not in a row, you will get a nuke contract. So if you're playing with the same quad every single evening, and between the 4 of you, you all get 30 wins as a group, you will have 4 nuke contracts to attempt in quads. And this should recharge every single time you get 30 wins in total. I think this is a really cool way of doing it because it means giga sweats like myself can still go for our outrageous 5 win streaks and get as many contracts as we can. But for those of you who just don't have the time investment, or for those of you who've always wanted to attempt to nuke but never really got round to it, 30 wins in total seems like an achievable target, and it's something you can do progressively over time. You don't have to do it within a single season, you don't have to do it within a week or a day, it can just be however long it takes you to get 30 wins. And for those of you who missed the news at COD Next, you can actually steal the nuke contract now. So if you hunt down the team that has it activated and you wipe that team from the game, you can take the contract from them and complete it yourselves. Meaning that nuke contracts are still valuable, but now they're valuable to everyone in the server if you have a coordinated enough attempt. The next thing coming in Season 1 Reloaded is night vision goggles are entering the Gulag, which is exciting to see. It's an NVG public event, and we saw it at COD Next already, and it's just another one of the potential variants. This was supposed to be in the game earlier, I believe, but they probably changed it due to a couple of bugs or just generally making it feel a bit more polished, and the NVG Gulag will be in this new season. Now, this is where some of the changes get a little bit controversial. Now, they've added a weapons case to Call of Duty Warzone, which will work similarly to the weapons case that we saw in the previous iteration of DMZ. It's on the map, and whoever picks up the weapons case will be marked vaguely on the map for other teams to potentially take out and extract the weapons case. And you can do that just by winning the game and being the last alive. But there is a new mechanic coming to the game that I think is going to be problematic, and this is called covert exfil. And a covert exfil is a way to leave the match early without necessarily being marked on the map. There are 5 exfils available to purchase per map, and apparently they cost a very high price in buy stations, and you can only do it before the gulag closes. A covert exfil will allow any player to leave the match early, ideally with the weapons case though, because it ultimately makes no sense to try and do a covert exfil early without the weapons case. And effectively, if you make one of these 5 purchasable covert exfils happen and you have the weapons case in hand, you can extract the weapons case, and the weapons case will come with some kind of loot, likely a blueprint or a weapon skin. It's worth noting that covert exfils do not count as a traditional win in Warzone. Rather, they are their own leaderboard statistic called covert exfils. They also don't count towards win streaks, and weapons case holders are marked on the map for everyone, so even if you are exfilling covertly, you'll still be on the map for the most part. Now, my only query with this and my only problem with this is that although it doesn't count as a traditional win, it's been added as what they've called a second victory option. And in my view, you should only be able to purchase a covert exfil is if you have the actual weapons case in hand. It shouldn't just be something that anybody can buy. And yes, it does cost a lot of money. And yes, you can only do it before the gulag closes. But in average lobbies, I honestly think the average player who doesn't keep up to date with these things might get a little confused and they might think they can win a game early by just having lots of cash on them. So it could go either way. I think this is personally a really interesting mechanic. I think it's going to allow for weapons cases to become an interesting side quest within a regular game of BR. But I think it should just simply be restricted to people who have the weapons case in hand. And again, this is all about execution. I only feel the only downside to this scenario is that servers could die out faster with people hunting down weapons case players, and servers could die out faster because most of people are trying to get this covert exfil off. That is the only threat. Adding more in-game events where people are identified on the map for a hot point, same with having different types of strongholds and cash drops, always leads to servers dying faster. And whilst I don't think you're going to see 5 people covert exfilling every single game, you're going to see at least one team doing that. And there's going to be at least another 2 to 3 teams trying to stop them from doing that, trying to steal the case, or trying to kill them themselves. And that could potentially drastically reduce the amount of action per game. And again, the player count needs to be brought into consideration here. There are only 100 players in Warzone, and things could get a little bit difficult there. That is the only negative side I see to that. It doesn't count as a traditional win. It doesn't count towards win streaks. It's just that it has this possibility to reduce the amount of action or engagements per game, and that's something to be worried about in terms of the general health of Warzone. There are also 2 new weapons coming to the game. The HMR SMG is allegedly a light yet stable 9mm SMG for close quarters combat and has a high rate of fire with good mobility. There is also the TAC Evolver LMG, which is a multi-caliber LMG capable of using 7.62 or 5.56 with minimal adjustments to the weapon. And what's interesting about this is that I think you'll be able to use certain attachments or potentially certain firing modes to use either of the ammunition types, which I think is going to be really interesting to see. This is one of the most versatile potential weapons we've seen in a while, and I imagine switching between 5.56 or 7.62 is going to dramatically change how the weapon handles and the statistics that it has. And that's pretty much it for Season 1 Reloaded for Warzone. It's always worth mentioning that these first updates in January tend to be the slowest of the year for the most part. It's one of the things that I think is always worth caveating for this entire thing, that Season 1 tends to be really light on content because they're coming back from Christmas. That being said, I think the new nuke contract allows more players to access the nuke than ever before, with the 30 potential wins, and also the ability to steal the contract. I think it's just going to add a really cool dynamic to games in Urzikstan and make the nuke contract a little bit more interesting for the entire server. The other flip side of that is this new covert exfil mechanic. And whilst I think weapons cases will actually be really cool in the new Warzone, I think the ability to hunt down teams who have the weapons case or try to get an exclusive skin or unlock maybe one week or the other week that is inside the weapons case is a cool idea. I'm a little bit worried about the fact that there are 5 purchasable covert exfils, and I'm a little bit worried about the fact that these weapons cases could kill off servers faster than we've anticipated. And if that does happen, they need to keep an eye on the player count and potentially increase it per server to compensate for these players being lost to these little side quests. Oh, and for those of you asking about weapon balancing, a weapon balancing update is going live tomorrow for the Interceptor, and there probably is going to be more weapon balancing in Season 1 Reloaded when that releases. So folks, that's about it. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like, drop a subscribe, and I'll catch you again in the next one.